Everyone's so quiet.
Respect.
I will call to order the Monday, August 12th meeting of the Verona Common Council, and we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, we'll have the roll call. Ms. Lynch, please.
Alderperson Diaz.
Here.
Alderperson Doyle.
Here.
Alderperson Manley.
Here.
Alderperson McGilvery.
Here.
Alderperson Reekie.
Here.
Alderperson Steiner.
Here.
Alderperson Yurs.
Here.
And Alderperson Bear is absent and excused this evening.
We do have a quorum, so we will proceed with the agenda. Next on the agenda is public comment. If there's anyone this evening that wishes to speak, if you would please come forward to the podium. There should be a sign-up sheet. If you have not signed in, please do sign in, and for our benefit and also for the benefit of those that are watching at home, if you would please state your name and address. So is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak this evening?
I already did sign in. My name is Paul Schultz, City of Verona resident for about let me do my math here, about 17 years. I spoke a little while ago at the meeting of the whole, and so no, not all of you were here, but I will kind of restate my case and my discussion from that time. Member of the Verona Fire Department, paid on call, have been for 14 years. I got on the Verona Fire Department to help serve my community in the best way I saw fit. No aspirations to be a politician, but unfortunately I found myself in this situation more times than I want to be. About 10 years ago, our then current chief stepped down, and we kind of started losing our leadership at the top of the chain in the city of Verona, or in the Verona Fire District Fire Department. And so since that time, we've been trying to find someone to bring us back to a spot where we felt we were being led very well. Our fire department performs outstandingly on scenes, accidents, fires, ambulance calls, you name it. We perform very, very well, very admirably. In fact, I don't think you've seen anything negative in the paper regarding how we respond and how we take care of our business. Internally, without a strong leader, we've had struggles in the last 10 years, and we continue to. A few weeks ago, I received a letter from the fire district that my services were no longer going to be needed at the end of this year, that I was done. And a while later, I received that same day, fortunately, I received an email from the chief stating that they're still trying to figure out what they're going to do with us as far as plan to retain POC, POP, and full-time firefighters. I have yet to see a plan. We're going on 3 to 4 weeks now, and unfortunately, it's very frustrating. It's very frustrating for myself, very frustrating for others. I feel like I've given 14 years of my time to this department and this city and town for what, I don't know. I mean, I know we like to be thought of as this hometown community and everything like that, but that's very frustrating, very disheartening. And I do know that we are going to go through an open process to hire the paid on call, the paid on premise, and the full-time employees. That's what I understand. Again, we have not been given a plan yet, and I know myself and others that have the seniority that I do or greater. I have real mixed feelings about staying on because of this. It's again, we need to go through the process like we're trying to start a new job. I understand filling out an application to go on to a new entity, but that's, other than that, it really shouldn't be any more than that. The chief was given the grace of being hired without going through an open process with the city. I feel that should happen also for the members of the department at this time. I I don't know, you guys don't have a lot of say in that. It's controlled by the PFC. PFC doesn't have open comment or public comment at their meeting, so I'm hoping some of what I say can get through to them at that point. You know, even if we do stay on, I'm being told that there's no seniority, none of our LOSA, any of that stuff is going to go over. Again, there's no plan, so this is just what tidbits I'm hearing coming out of there. So I really hope that everyone takes that in consideration as they make accommodations for what this new department will be. Again, this fire department has done an admirable job in the city for many years, ever since I've been on here, and I hope it can continue to do that. As a taxpayer, which I also am, I really don't see the need with the things that we have coming up on the agenda for the City of Verona Fire Department to add a bunch more expense for as far as going through a massive hiring process, adding a second full-time chief, a deputy chief. Those are all expenses that aren't there today. So you know, that's added expense with the building coming online and everything that this department or this city doesn't really need to undertake, as far as I'm concerned. I'd like to thank everyone for your time, and again, I hope you guys, you know, can do the right thing as you have done by the chief, and continue to support the department as it is today. And you know, we'll continue to do what we can do to make this, as the chief said, at this time, you know, anything can get better, but you know, we're a very good department right now. So, thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Anyone else who wishes to speak?
Do you want comments mostly in order, like you want more comments about the fire department, or?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily,
Anything you
okay.
want to speak on.
So my name is David Lonsdorf. I live at 1717 Beach Road in the town of Verona. I'm a resident of first the city and then the town since 1984, so I've been here almost 30 years. I'm a family physician working at UW, and I live in the neighborhood of the proposed development of the Brown Farm. I'm also the president of the board of the Ice Age Trail. Although I'm not speaking for the Ice Age Trail, I'm just speaking for myself. I think the plan for the city to annex the Brown Farm and the surrounding areas is bad for several reasons, and I oppose it, and I hope that the council people oppose it too. I think building 108 unsewered houses on a small area like this where the land is steep and there's a lot of runoff seems inherently to be a bad idea, despite whatever the experts that the developer has hired will tell you. I live in the neighborhood, and whenever there's a heavy rain, as there was a lot this spring, there's a lot of runoff from there. I know there's thought that having houses and some kind of drainage plan will help that, but there's a lot of other ways to ameliorate that that would not involve so many houses. The density of the development is also 2 to 3 times what the density is there now. Is going to add 500 to 800 cars on Sunset and PB, which is already very crowded. That's why we have there's plans to fix the road this summer, but that's only going to handle the traffic that's there now. There's going to have to be another substantial upgrade in order to handle that much traffic. The next reason is Prairie Moraine County Park is right next to this. It's a very popular spot for dog walkers and hikers. There's probably 10 to 15,000 visits there per year, many from people in the city of Madison who like coming to Verona and probably spend money in Verona, although I don't know that. Building a large development like this in the viewshed and adjacent to it would be a very bad idea for them because it really ruins the rural character of the park and turns it into more or less like Maple Grove area. The last reason, I think the most important, is that this is really a slap in the face of the Ice Age National Scenic Trail. The word scenic means that you get good views when you're hiking on the Ice Age Trail, and the proposed development has a small corridor. It's about 50 to 75 feet wide for the Ice Age National Scenic Trail to go through. This would be more consistent with a city sidewalk, not a national scenic hiking trail. I think the city of Verona really ought to embrace the Ice Age Trail rather than constrict it and lessen its impact like this. There are 1.2 million visitors a year already in the to the Ice Age Trail in the state, even though it's only half complete. We did a study which showed that there was $113 million economic impact to the state and the local communities that are near the trail from the trail right now. If the city of Verona would be more interested in the Ice Age Trail, they could benefit from that too. So for all of those reasons, I hope that you guys don't agree to annex this property. So thank you.
Thank you. And David, I saw when I got here this evening that I had an email from you, so
Yeah.
when I get a chance, I'll review it a little closer and then we'll talk more.
Okay, thanks.
All right, thank you. Anyone else that wishes to speak?
I've already signed in. My name is Ed Spoon. I live on Cross Country Circle in the town of Verona. I'm an 18-year resident of the town of Verona. I'm an active volunteer with the Ice Age Trail Alliance, working to build and maintain the trail in Dane County and across the state of Wisconsin. The proposed development of the Brown Farm lies astride the corridor designated for the Ice Age Trail in the Dane County Parks and Open Space Plan. I would like to see the city of Verona welcome the Ice Age Trail and embrace the goals of the Ice Age Trail Alliance, and that is to provide trail users with scenic, aesthetic, and interpretive surroundings via a protected and preserved corridor of sufficient width to assure long-term viability. The minuscule area set aside for the trail in the Brown Farm concept plan trivializes the trail by granting it little more significance than a city sidewalk. The proposed development will destroy the view shed that users of Prairie Moraine County Park and the Ice Age Trail currently enjoy and could enjoy long into the future. I respectfully ask the Common Council to reject the proposed development of this land. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kristen Napier. I live at 933 Hillside Way in Restridge, and I've lived here in Verona for 8 years, have worked at Epic for 11 years, and moved out here to Verona before the campus was created. And I actually would like to speak in favor of the Brown Farm development. I do think that there is a demand for homes of the type that are proposed, for lots that are the type that are proposed, giving families, young families like ours, a little bit more room to spread out and really support the community throughout the life cycle. People who really want to call Verona home and have made a career at Epic would like to be able to have some apartment housing for when they're younger and really getting into things, then starter homes and other nice homes that we could live in. And then also if we want an opportunity to expand and still have that neighborhood feel where we can be in a community with others and not on a necessarily rural plot with substantial acreage, but really have the opportunity to grow and expand that way, and then eventually downsize and really call Verona home. So I just wanted to speak in favor of the proposal, and if not this particular proposal, something similar to it that offers that type of housing, because I do feel that talking with my peers at Epic and others of my children's friends, there's certainly a demand for property in a development like this, and we really don't have anything like it. Folks, you know, like us would be moving to Middleton, Oregon, somewhere like that, and would be forced to commute and put more strain on all those roads leading into Epic, and you know, force our children to leave their friends that they've made in school. So that's what I wanted to say this evening.
Thank you for your comments.
Hello, I'm Jim Schrader. I live at 6680 Redstone Lane. That's in the town of Verona. I have over a 600-foot giant property with the Browns, so I'm here to address the Brown property. I guess I realize that eventually development's going to come. I guess I would like to see it done right. I'm not happy with the way things are right now. If I had my druthers, I would hope that George Brown was still farming, because he used to rotate his crops and we really didn't have much erosion problems. But over the last few years, it's been mostly corn and mostly bare ground. And this spring, when the rains came, first of all, you might recognize my name. I emailed you when the rains came that you maybe had a chance to get out and look at the situation. But when the rains come now, I have soil coming down in and around. So the drainage system that was created 40-some years ago, that water goes around my house, is filled with soil from the Brown farm right now. And so the way it is now certainly isn't the answer, because I'm going to have to hire a grader, and he's coming in 2 weeks, and it's cost me a lot of money to get the grading back the way it used to be. But I guess the thing that bothers me the most, I mean, that's my personal problem that's created because of it, but that is, you know, I could live with the development a lot better if there was sewer and water coming out from the city. I don't know what the proposal is now, but when the proposal was coming to the town, the developer talked about 200-foot wells, 108 200-foot wells. Checking with my neighbors, my well is about the deepest in the area, and I'm at 120 feet. I'm just thinking of this 1 year, 2 year, 5 year. Who's going to help me out when I run out of water? And the other thing, that if the Brown property has any similar situations to mine, we have layered stone. Water does not percolate down, it goes sideways. And to make 108 sewer systems work in water that percolates sideways, I would question whether they all work properly. So environmentally, I see it as a real problem. So I guess I'm not telling you, you know, don't develop, but boy, if you could make sewer and water come out there, it would make things a lot better for the neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, registered also. My name's Christy Shore. I live at 6520 Sunset Drive in the town of Verona. We've lived there since 1979. We've owned our land since, we've lived there since 1991 and owned our land since 1979. And our property actually is kind of the property you'll see in the middle of this, the development. Likewise, I say that I understand that there's going to be development that occurs, and I think people have the right to try to do development. So my concerns basically stem way back from when this first got brought to the town. We had questions at that time about the development in this area, concerns about the development. And I think those things still exist, maybe even more so now, because the density at that time was even less than what it is now. They're proposing 108 homes. So I guess my thing to the Common Council would be that I would hope that you could answer to the people that still have the same concerns that we had back when this first came about, and worked very hard with the town of Verona on many different levels. And some of the main issues at that time were the town and the town residents were trying to address the issue about the density of the development. And now that there is an increased density, some of these concerns become even greater for myself. One of the first concerns is adding the 108 homes with all of the access from these homes onto Sunset. That was a huge struggle with the town, and trying to find different ways on how could this be done, how can we alleviate some of this traffic. They're doing some improvements to Sunset right now for the existing conditions. You know, can Sunset handle this amount of traffic? How difficult will it be to get onto PB? I don't know if you've ever driven that in the morning at the present time, but it's pretty difficult to get on, and we're going to be adding, if it's 108 homes and each person only had one car, which I highly doubt, you're going to be between 100 and 200 and more vehicles, all funneling from onto Sunset. There's no other way to get out of that development. That's a huge concern. Who will be responsible for the roads, and who will be responsible if the traffic becomes a problem, and for what period of time? Who's really going to handle this, and what is the long-range plan for this if it becomes a problem and this goes forward? Are there ways not to have the access all onto Sunset Drive? What about the other landowners in the future? If the city is considering moving into the rural development area, will this development make Sunset at capacity, so another splits of the property, or if the city decides to look further and expand these rural developments that people feel are at a desirable level? Maybe it's years and years and years down the road, but nonetheless, I think it should be looked at. Does it bring is it planned out well enough for the roads and the access for other large parcels if you would decide that those should be split to occur. And I think so, looking at the long term, one of the other kind of big concerns that I would have is that this farm has been farmed for a very long period of time, and it has had liquid manure knifed into the ground for long periods of time. And it is my understanding, I'm not an expert at this at all, but it would be, again, I'm just listing concerns that I have, and I'm not knowledgeable about all of this, but that this can be one of the greatest sources of nitrates in the water. I am very concerned about that. What would happen if there becomes a nitrate problem that would develop with these wells, much less the taxing on the other water supply for the neighbors that was brought up before? Is the city prepared and able to bring in water to this area versus having wells? The drainage problem has been addressed. It's been talked about also that it's going to improve the drainage problem. How certain are we about that issue, that it can be resolved? And what are the plans to do so? Another concern would be looking at the layout of some of these lots are really in some low-lying areas. And I think if you go down to the bottom of Sunset Drive, you'll see some areas in the town that had homes on them, and that's part of the whole issue. They're in pretty low-lying areas. And one last clarification that I would like you to let me know about in some fashion, if you could, is, and I'm not sure if I'm understanding this properly, I'm wanting to find out if there is a state law that is on our books at the present time that if a county reaches 500,000 people, which Dane County this year is slated to do, and a city has a development on a septic system, then the city becomes a responsible party for making for sure the septics are checked and working properly, and it gets removed from the county. If the county would no longer be involved, if that is the case, which I'm not certain I'm interpreting this right, does the city have the staff and resources to monitor and follow through with that aspect? So I just want to be certain that all these things are addressed and answered prior to decisions being made to develop any rural areas, that an appropriate planning be done for both now and in the future. And I respect that individuals should have a choice to develop their land. However, I truly feel that the overall density of this development is not appropriate for this area and has an awful lot of concerns to address for its density. So I thank you for listening.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else under public comment? Hi,
Hello, Mayor.
how are you?
I'm fine.
Good.
It's nice to be here. My name is Carol Terrell. I reside at 19 Red Maple Trail in Madison, Wisconsin. I'm the secretary for an environmental nonprofit that serves Dane County and the surrounding counties. Our name is the Capital Region Advocacy Network for Environmental Sustainability. That's a mouthful, so Cranes is what we call ourselves. And Mayor Hockemer and I've talked about the Cranes before. We are committed to preserving the integrity and scenic beauty of the Prairie Moraine County Park and the Ice Age National Scenic Trail. These precious outdoor recreational resources have been a part of the adopted Dane County Parks and Open Space Plan for many years. Cranes is also working throughout Dane County and south central Wisconsin to protect and enhance water resources and maintain the rural heritage of this region's natural landscapes and agricultural economy. Cranes opposes the annexation of the 173-acre Brown Farm for unsewered development. The Brown Farm is located in the town of Verona, adjacent to the Prairie Moraine County Park. Park and trail users appreciate the quality of the still rural setting of the Moraine County Park and the Ice Age National Scenic Trail at the southern edge of the city of Verona. We understand that Dane County Parks is prepared to buy the Brown Farm and to add it to the Prairie Moraine County Park. Money for this purchase is already budgeted by the Dane County Board of Supervisors. We ask the City of Verona elected leaders to allow this purchase to expand Prairie Moraine County Park to go forward. Imagine what a marvelous recreational opportunity, in addition to the quality of life for the residents of Verona, it will be to have this larger Dane County Park. Imagine how this park addition will enhance the experience of hikers who may be local residents or tourists as they journey on the long-distance National Scenic Trail meandering through this area. Imagine an expanse of prairie shimmering in yellow coneflowers, prairie dock and compass plant blooming on a future August day at your city's border. I have a photo of the area that I've attached to this statement that I'll give to you. Cranes is also disturbed that the purpose for annexing the 173-acre Brown Farm is to allow for unsewered development. Municipalities with the ability to provide public sewer and water, fire, police, and emergency services should be committed to extending the full range of these services to lands within their jurisdictions as these lands are developed. New unsewered development is problematic for several fiscal, phased growth, and environmental reasons. This annexation is a critical environmental land use decision. Thank you for considering these points, and Cranes urges you to oppose annexing the 173-acre Brown Farm for unsewered development.
We do. We do. We do. Thank you, Carol. Thank you for your comments. Anyone else that wishes to speak?
Afternoon, evening. Scott Larson, Assistant Chief of the Verona Fire Department. Excuse what I'm wearing, but we just had a call for service right before this, and we came right up here, so we wouldn't miss it. I just want to speak a little bit on the hiring process and paid on call, paid on premise, full-time staff with the Verona Fire Department, and what's possibly going to happen in the future. I just kind of want to be an advocate for keeping the current staff. Whether we have issues internally or externally, we should be handling them with our leadership, which currently is not being handled properly, I feel. But we are losing hundreds of years of service for the dedicated people that put into this time. Most of them are Verona residents at this time. Others are paid on premise like myself, who actually live in Belleville but grew up in Verona, graduated in Verona. I still have 18 years in the department here. Want to see this department strive. They put countless hours in behind the scenes that no one sees to make this department better and serve the citizens of Verona. They know people, they know nooks and crannies of buildings that new firefighters that will come in this department will never ever know or see. Epic alone, the knowledge that these firefighters gain of the buildings up there and what we have to protect and go about up there. You got to consider all that stuff, training, response times. They don't know the new firefighters, if it's a completely different group coming in here, will not know the streets, will not know how to get there. Delayed times. There's all kinds of factors we can go into that could justify keeping what we have in place. For example, tomorrow with your gracious funding, we have a brand new engine we're picking up tomorrow at almost $600,000 to help us better serve the department. That engine is designed to get all our equipment there and get everything on scene with the least amount of personnel so we can start whatever we have to do. These people will be coming up on their time off doing this, working on this, and I personally feel that they're kind of being stabbed in the back. They put time in, they deserve to keep their positions, they deserve to be considered, not just being told they're terminated at the end of the year and you have to reapply. We're losing a lot of great information, great experience, and I'm just going to put it in a final time. I think we need to work on our leadership to change things in the department and keep what we have. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that wishes to speak?
Good evening. My name is Drew Bloss. I actually used to be neighbors with some of you up on the board there, and I wasn't expecting to speak this evening. I live at 6360 Sunset Drive. I recently moved just about a year ago from Hawthorne Hills neighborhood in Verona, city of Verona, to the town of Verona, where I have 9 acres there on the corner of Sunset Drive. And part of the reason why I moved there was because my wife and I enjoy the scenery, the rural scenery. We enjoy that we have a barn on our property, that we step outside, there's deer walking around the trails, walking up and down our driveway with us. And the whole thought of this Brown Farm has kind of hit us by surprise. And at this point, I kind of feel like I'm in a race as well, because we have 9 acres, we're looking to have my mother and father-in-law. My father-in-law's got paralysis. I'm hoping to build a house for them on our property, and here I am feeling like I'm in a race now with the city of Verona to try and get permits so that I can build a house for them on our property and then without having to deal with the city of Verona permitting process. Because right now, at this moment, I'm not within the city of Verona's ETJ or whatever they call it. So, you know, I'm not opposed to development. I lived in the Hawthorne Hills neighborhood, and I'm sure this is a kind of a deja vu for those people that own the farms there and the area around there beforehand. But, you know, I'm not opposed to development, but I think responsible, good long look at what the impact is going to be on the people that have been there for ages and hope to be there for ages more. I think they deserve a nice long look at this and making sure that their voices are heard as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Catherine Hornberger, and I'm also going to speak about the Brown Farm, which is a hot topic tonight, apparently. I actually wanted to speak in favor of the Brown Farm or a development like this and let you know that I do believe there is...
Catherine, if I could just, what was your address? I'm sorry.
649 Harvest Lane.
Okay, thank you.
I believe there is demand for this type of property. My family's certainly interested, and I know there are others out there as well. We have lived in Verona for the past 6 years, moved here from California, and just happened upon Verona and consider ourselves very lucky to have done so. We are active in the school system. My son plays almost every sport imaginable here in Verona, active in the church. The one thing that we have been frustrated by is the lack of a variety of housing. We feel that the options out there right now in the housing developments are more of the same. We are looking for a larger home on a larger lot size. I'll be the first to admit that I cannot talk to any of the environmental factors were raised. I'll leave that to the experts. But I do feel that there is need for other housing opportunities within Verona. I feel that we need to grow, but choose, of course, how we grow and, you know, not let things pass us by. We need to embrace it. We'd like to stay long-term residents in Verona, and this is just one thing that, you know, we've been challenged by, and I think there are others out there as well. They're moving to Wanakee, Oregon, Middleton. I think we're losing good families, and it would help to have more variety out there. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
My name is Lisa Butler, and I live at 6713 Sunset Drive. I have been in the Verona community for 25 years, lived in the city for much of that, and moved out to the country because I wanted to be in the country, not in the city with millions of cars and big, huge houses. The other issue I have with the Brown property at this particular moment is we are at the bottom of the hill and continue to get flooded on a regular basis. It goes up to our house. It's in all of our yards. The smell is bad. There is a major river in the back of our yard that flows very quickly. It can be dangerous for little children. We're worried about the well water. We're worried about not having a well if they were to put these houses there. And also the expansion, which is what Christy brought up, that this is much larger, the number of houses, than what was originally discussed at the town of Verona. Also, the lots are much smaller. The original discussion was 3 to 5 acres per house. So that is something that has also changed. And then obviously the traffic on Sunset, which has already been mentioned. Most people have at least 2 cars, if not more, so we're looking at, you know, a substantial amount of additional increased traffic on there. So I appreciate you letting me speak. We hope that you do not let this go through. We are very worried. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
My name is Russ Riley. I'm at 6725 Sunset Drive. I'm the last house at the bottom, so I get all of Horseshoe Bend, I get all the Brown Farm, all the dog park, all the water comes through my yard. It's quite dangerous right now, and I really can't handle any more water. The neighbors met with Dane County Conservation last week, and I also talked to the gentleman that addressed the stormwater here at the Planning Commission last week after the meeting, and he wasn't aware that that is a designated waterway. The county said that there's no way that wells and septics would fly up there. They said there's no way that they can dam up with a retention pond the waterway. So there's a lot of things I think you guys need to take a look at before you jump on board. The water is a serious issue. There's way too much coming down through. I had 4 inches of mud on the last rain, which was a 3.5-inch rain in my yard, saturated. I have a 4-acre lot. I believe about half an acre wasn't underwater. I mean, it's very dangerous. There's water coming across the road in several spots, leaves a mud slick. It's a dangerous situation. So I think that's, you know, I understand that development's got to be, it keeps going, but, you know, this is a city density of more than it is a rural density. You know, city water, city sewer, storm sewer. I mean, there's no reason why the storm sewer can't run down past the residences that are there. I mean, the road is slated to be rebuilt. Now's the time to put it in. If you're going to keep developing out that way because you're going to annex that way, what are you going to do when there's more houses coming out there and city sewer and water comes out that way, and you've got this development that's on wells and septics? Going to make them switch? I think it's a big concern. I mean, if you're deciding to come this way with annexation, then so be it. But, you know, I think it should be under city conditions. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else that wishes to speak?
I had not signed in. My name is Rhonda McCarthy. I am with Pinnacle Real Estate Group. I'm here in support of the Brown Farm or another development like it. I have relocation company buyers coming in. I have clients in Verona and I have clients in Hawks Landing, all trying to find larger lots and get into the Verona district, and I have nowhere to take them. Like you've heard earlier, I'm going to Oregon, Wanakee, Middleton. So I'm just asking Verona to open up some land. We need some building. I have nowhere to take my clients. So I'm just asking for support. I don't know where else to go with them. That's
Thank
it.
you for your comments.
Would you sign that paper, though?
I will.
Hi, my name is Mike Clark. I did not sign up. 6697 Sunset Drive. I think it's obvious that with all the talk about the 7 or 8 different major issues we're talking about with the wells and septics and water and traffic and Ice Age Trail, that this is obviously not a good decision. This development was brought up about 8 years ago with the town of Verona, and for 8 years it's been shut down. And now they're going to the city with the new septics and wells, and I think that's not a good choice for the city of Verona to start looking at septics and wells. That's really all I have to say. It's just kind of a blatant 8 years ago when this happened, and now we're still talking about it, so it's kind of like beating a dead horse.
Thank you. Anyone else that wishes to speak this evening?
I'm Todd Schmitz, 6693 Sunset Drive. I'm probably directly impacted the first house down from the property, of the Brown property. I understand what they want to do. I mean, a lot of the pros of it you're hearing is all monetary. People want to make some money. I understand that. But the impact that we're going to get from that
the stuff has been not looked into deep enough to take care of the problems that we have already? Is the city prepared to take those problems that we see now? I'm going to be considered a town of Verona resident, but is the city, who do I come to? They're proposing that there's issues are going to be resolved. The stormwater, they're telling me I'm not going to see any more water. Well, when it does happen, who do I go to? Do I go to the town? Does that fall on deaf ears? I don't have a council person to come talk to. During the process of construction, if there's issues, who do we go to? That's some of the concerns. Obviously, my property's impacted hugely by the mud now. That's pretty much all I just want answers. I'm not going to oppose what they want to do, but I want answers of why it's going to be impacted, or why the problems be taken care of. And I can go from there.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, my name is Delora Newton, and I'm here tonight in the capacity of President of the Police and Fire Commission. I've lived in Verona for 17 years. I live on Aspen Court. And I apologize in advance that I'm going to read from a document. I don't like to do that, but I think it's important for me to do that because I have a lot of information to convey that I think will be of interest to everyone, and I want to make sure that I convey it accurately and completely. So please excuse my reading from a document. At last week's Committee of the Whole, some council members indicated they were opposed to the PFC's intent to conduct an open recruitment process for hiring fire department personnel and may offer a motion tonight to prohibit the use of city funds in such a process. Since that time, I've met with Chief Giver in an attempt to provide an accurate assessment of the cost to conduct an open recruitment process and assure you we plan to be fiscally responsible with taxpayer dollars. First, most of the costs from the recruitment process will be the same regardless of the hiring process used. I think everyone will agree that all 5 career positions to be hired should pass medical tests and a background investigation before coming onto city payroll and the health insurance plan. And about 93% of the estimated $4,555 in recruitment costs will be spent in this manner. The cost of the CPAT test will be borne by the applicant, as in standard practice in most fire departments across Wisconsin. Chief Giver and I will recommend to the PFC that medical tests will not be required for paid on call and paid on premises personnel because they are not part of the city's health insurance group. So that leaves $325 in estimated costs to be spent on advertising for positions. And I'm pleased that I attended the Finance Committee before this meeting, and it was a 3-0 vote to approve the whole $4,555, which includes that $325 for advertising. So now that you have an accurate assessment of costs, I'll explain why an open recruitment process is the preferred method of staffing the new city fire department. The PFC is the entity which hires city fire department personnel. We have consulted with the PFC's legal counsel about the requirements imposed by law in that hiring process. Under Section 6213 of the state statutes, the PFC is authorized to appoint the fire chief. This is different than the process outlined by statute for subordinates, that is the other full-time firefighting staff. The fire district went through an extensive hiring process within the last 2 years and hired Chief Giver. We reviewed that process and discussed it with the current fire district commission. The PFC decided, given the recent hiring process for the chief and our satisfaction with the comprehensiveness of that process, to forego incurring the cost of money and time on another hiring process for the chief so soon after Chief Giver was hired. The hiring of other firefighting employees is required to be done by the chief with approval of the commission. The hiring must be done by promotion or from an eligibility list provided by examination or approval of the board or the PFC. In this circumstance, promotion is not an option since there is not a city department from which to promote. Thus, the chief and the PFC must go through a process to develop a certification process from which to hire firefighting employees. The PFC has a lengthy process for certifying police officers, which is the other half that we deal with. The process the fire chief is recommending is consistent with that process and with the process other local fire departments use when hiring full-time employees. That process includes an open application process with those applications screened and ranked. The PFC members have a fiduciary duty to the citizens of Verona to staff the fire department with the best possible employees, and given this obligation, we are committed to staff the fire department with the best candidates. Gradually, the city hopes to increase the number of career fire personnel and perhaps even go to a 24-hour shifts. I'm not quite sure the motion that was at Finance tonight, if that was for 24 hours or 12 hours. The PFC has responsibility to ensure that fire personnel hired for this new city department possess the knowledge, experience, attitude, and customer service standards expected of all city staff, regardless of department where they work. This does not mean the PFC has decided not to hire current fire personnel. I'll repeat that. This does not mean the PFC has decided not to hire current fire personnel. It simply means that we believe an open recruitment process ensures that the city hires the best fire personnel available. Let me give examples of what I mean by talking about hires that we've made on the police side. The recruitment process for candidates in the police department starts with the application. Those who meet the minimum position requirements take a written exam. Those who pass the written exam are invited to participate in an assessment center. During that day-long experience, candidates are evaluated while responding to various scenarios they might encounter on a daily basis. Those emerging with a positive score are interviewed by the PFC. The PFC then formally certifies candidates who are eligible for further consideration. We try to certify more candidates than there are openings, so the chief has hiring options. Per state statutes, Chief Coughlin can only hire someone on the eligibility list. He then interviews the eligible candidates and conducts background investigations before making his hiring decisions. During some recruitment processes, the Verona PD gets applications from individuals currently working as police officers in other cities. The PFC requires that they go through the same process as everyone else, even though they very likely pass similar tests with their current employer. The PFC's due diligence has helped the department avoid hiring officers who would not have represented the ethics, values, and standards Chief Coughlin has instilled throughout the department. During the interview process, the PFC has uncovered valid reasons to decline to certify applicants who currently work as police officers in other cities. At times, candidates we've certified, including those who are working as law enforcement officers in other departments, do not pass our background investigations and are eliminated from further consideration. Because Verona's PD hiring process is this thorough, we have avoided hiring officers who would appear qualified on the surface but would not have upheld the standards and qualities the public expects from the Verona PD. Yes, we could have hired them, taken steps to discipline them when they needed it, and possibly fire them, but that would have potentially cost the city a lot of money, and it certainly would have hurt our department's reputation in the meantime. I share this as an illustrated example of why the PFC believes we need an open recruitment process in the fire department too. But again, I clarify that this example does not infer deficiencies within the current Verona fire personnel. We wouldn't find out if there are issues until we conduct interviews, background checks, and medical assessments. If current Verona Fire Department personnel passes all these steps, then they may be offered positions by Chief Giver. If they don't pass all these steps, we need to have additional qualified candidates to select from. The contemplated staffing plan for the city department has a different structure than the current one currently in place for the fire district. The proposed city structure includes a deputy chief position and 3 lieutenant positions. Through an application process, the current employees will be able to apply for the position they desire, and the chief and the PFC will be able to assess whether they meet the criteria required for those positions. Another benefit from an open recruitment process for hiring the officer positions is that we may get applicants from larger departments who want to move up the ladder more quickly than they can in their current department. It will best serve the city to know whether our current personnel or outside candidates would bring the best knowledge, skills, and professionalism to the department. The chief and I intend to make 3 additional recommendations to the PFC when they meet on Wednesday. The first recommendation is that all current career fire personnel will be guaranteed an employment interview with the PFC. While they will be required to apply and have their applications ranked with the rest of the pool, they will automatically pass to the interview stage regardless of their rank. The second recommendation is that we will use a streamlined hiring structure for paid on call and paid on premises personnel. We have to work out exactly what that is, but it'll be streamlined. This is consistent with hiring practices in other fire departments. And the third recommendation is that we adopt the hiring timeline proposed by Chief Giver that targets conditional offers of employment for career positions to be made in early November. In conclusion, I think the information I have shared tonight provides ample justification for conducting an open recruitment process for Verona Fire Department personnel. I will be here while you discuss this agenda item later, and if you wish to ask me questions, I'm available to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Delora. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak this evening under public comment? Anyone else?
Good evening, I'm Susan Pagorsh. I'm at 6415 Sunset Drive. I want to just join my good neighbors from Sunset who have spoken to you this evening about their concerns. I'd be redundant to go over all the issues they've shared with you, but sewer, water, traffic are huge considerations for all of us, and they have been for a long time with this development. We also are very excited to hear from Crane and understand that there's another use for the Brown property. We don't deny the Browns their right to develop, but it should be developed the right way. I would also like to address the comment about real estate. There are at least 3 properties for sale on Sunset Drive and nearby now, and they have been for years, so I don't think there's a dearth of available properties in our beautiful neighborhood, and we encourage people to come and look. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak this evening under public comment? Anyone else that wishes to speak? Seeing none, we are going to move along then with the agenda. Next on the agenda are approval of minutes from July 22nd meeting of the Common Council. The minutes were included with your packet. What's your pleasure? We have a motion by Mr. Manley. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Yurs. Were there any additions or corrections to the minutes of the previous meeting? Seeing none, all those in favor of approval of minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Under Mayor's business, just a few items this evening. First of all, we want to thank everyone for their involvement. Anyone who was involved with National Night Out last week, Tuesday. What a great event. From what I've heard from the people that were working there was that this is the largest crowd that we've ever had. And the weather was good and the evening was fantastic. Everyone that I talked to had a really, really good time. So a lot of people were involved. I did ask Chief Coughlin who was the main person in the police department behind this effort, and he mentioned Ryan Adkins. So we certainly want to thank Ryan Adkins when we see him, but there were a lot of people involved, a lot of different levels of public safety service, so we appreciate everyone that worked on that. Next, I have a proclamation this evening to read, and this is a proclamation regarding Children's Vision Learning Month. Whereas as children across the state of Wisconsin prepare for the start of another school year, many of them will begin their studies with undiagnosed and untreated vision problems. And whereas research shows that vision disorders are the #1 handicapping condition of children. In fact, as many as 1 in 4 of our school-aged children have vision problems, according to the College of Optometrists in Vision and Development. And whereas all children deserve the opportunity to learn and to achieve their full potential, whereas for the above reasons, public awareness about learning-related vision problems is necessary to ensure that young people receive the prompt vision treatment they need to enhance their lives. And now therefore I, John Holcomer, Mayor of the City of Verona, in accordance with the Office of the Governor of the State of Wisconsin and in recognition of the importance of good vision to learning, do hereby proclaim August 2013 as Children's Vision and Learning Month. And I encourage the parents, educators, school nurses, and all concerned adults to recognize the critical role good vision plays in the learning process and to work together to help prevent or reduce the impact untreated vision problems can have on our children's ability to read and learn. And this proclamation is signed and dated today, August 12, 2013. Next on the agenda, we have with us this evening one of our Dane County representatives and state representative. So I would ask Representative Diane Hesselbein if you would please come forward.
Well, thank you so much, Mayor. I appreciate you having me on the agenda this evening. I did bring presents, which is always good to do. I have the new state of Wisconsin maps. So officially, if you have the Jim Doyle maps, you can recycle them. Here are the new ones. I'll pass them out. So I thought what I'd do is just give you a little bit of update of what's been happening at the Capitol. And I don't talk that long, so if anybody in here is worried, you don't need to be. First of all, I was really pleased. I was just sworn in January, and so I'm brand new to the State Assembly, and I currently represent, I wrote it down just to make sure, the town and city of Middleton, Westport, Waunakee, Vienna, Springfield, a little tiny piece of Burke, part of the city and town of Verona, the village of Cross Plains, and the town of Barry. So it's a very large area. I feel very fortunate that people trusted me with this responsibility. A couple of good things that have happened. I presented with, and we announced we have a redistricting bill. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the millions of dollars that were spent in the last very partisan redistricting effort of our state. And we had a lot of different models to choose from. A lot of things have been floated throughout the years. And we thought the easiest one would be to go with the Iowa model. And what it is we have a wonderful, and any of you who've ever been at the state know we have a great nonpartisan, it is wonderful, Legislative Reference Bureau. And what this bill would do if it was passed is they would draw the maps, and then if it was the same leadership in 2020 as it is now, it would be Chris Larson, Peter Barca, the Fitzgerald, and Robin Voss. And the four of them would all have to agree on the fifth person to be on this committee. So after the maps would be drawn, these five, or whoever's in leadership of both parties by then, would be traveling all around the state. And we were very clear it wasn't just in Madison to have hearings for Dane County, but all over the state to get input from citizens on this mapping process. And they would have hearings, they could make a few adjustments here or there, and then at the end they would have to agree on which set of the maps they would be going forward with. It would save millions of dollars. For those of you who are budget hawks, I know some of you are, I would really suggest that you contact Representative Voss. He has indicated to the Wisconsin State Journal he's not interested in this bill. A lot of Democrats have signed on to it, and Dale Schultz has signed on to it, the Republican from the southern area of Wisconsin. It would save, once again, millions of dollars. So I'm hoping that the redistricting, I'm hoping we can do it right. So far this legislative session, I'm just going to tell you a little bit of highlights that have happened. One thing that I've always believed in is local control. So I really do want to partner with all of you. So if you have any ideas on ways that I can help you, every single bill that I've worked on, whether it's redistricting, a veterans bill I've been working on, life vests for people that are boating, actually not boating, white water rafting up north. It's because people in the district have contacted me about something that happened to them. Usually it's a tragedy, and they want to make sure that's something that I can try to fix. So that's what I'm doing. But so far, the Republicans approved a state budget that strips local control. They're setting residency requirements for management level staff. They want to deny the construction of a cell phone tower out of concern for the aesthetic beauty of the community. They're limiting community control over its own finances by levy offset, which forces local governments to reduce property taxes, which I know you're aware of, to an equal amount of service for which it charges the public. So in other words, you can't charge a snowplow fee, collection, a vehicle registration fee, or any of those type of things. There are some things too that give me great pause. They approved a bill, but you have to follow this train of thought. They approved a bill allowing up to 50% of poll workers to come from outside the bounds of the municipality, and gives political parties, not elected clerks, the right to appoint up to 50% of those workers. That's Assembly Bill 225. It passed the Assembly in June, but it's now in the Senate. I'm hoping the Senate doesn't take that up. I'm sure you appreciate your city clerk. I know I do for the city of Middleton. They do a great job, and I don't think we need to get involved in the great jobs that they do. They also introduced a bill limiting the hours municipalities can have available for early voting. That's Assembly Bill 54, and it's in Assembly Campaigns and Elections Committee. So the bill is introduced, it hasn't been voted on yet. The other one that's very interesting is they want to allow bird preserves to be converted to sport shooting ranges without the approval of local government. So if you have any bird preserves, that's Assembly Bill 7, and that's still in the Assembly Natural Resources Committee. My whole philosophy is we should be partnering with local government and working with you to create jobs, strengthen our communities, and move Wisconsin forward. I do have some good news, though, and so I'm really happy to tell you what that is. People always say, what good stuff is happening? I introduced a veteran bill. A veteran emailed me and said he saw in other parts of the United States that veterans were given priority registration when they would go for classes at their universities. I think it was Virginia and California, and wondered if I could help out. So I thought, well, sure, I can look at that. So I went to the Legislative Reference Bureau. We helped draft a bill together, and I put it out there, and I wasn't sure what would happen. And to my surprise and complete delight, Republican Representative Stephen Nass was the first person to jump on this bill and said, wow, Diane, that's a great idea. Let's make it happen. And we had more people that signed on that said, yes, I want to be part of this bill. And it had a huge bipartisan support. And Representative Nass was fantastic throughout the entire process. It passed the Assembly unanimously, which really doesn't happen a lot. And it's now in the Senate committee. They had a hearing. It went really well. They're going to be voting on it next week. Governor Walker has already signaled that he likes the bill. He thinks it's good. And what it really does, it gives our veterans that come back have a finite time to use the bill, to use the benefits that they've earned. And this just says we already give preferential treatment and for registering for courses to disabled students. And the reason that is sometimes they have to get from one part of the campus to the other, making sure they can get there in time. But we also do that for our athletes. So let's do it for our veterans, because a lot of the times what's happening is they register for a freshman or sophomore course, it's full, they can't get in, their benefits run out, and then they're still paying for it on the back end. So let's keep our promise to our veterans and make sure they get the education that they deserve and they need. The last thing I'd like to say about the budget, I've learned very quickly to not always believe what people say, follow what they do. Bob Lang is the director of the Legislative Fiscal Bureau. He does a great job. So while you heard things probably that the state budget is helping people possibly with their income taxes if you make a great deal, I'm here to tell you that your property taxes are going up quite substantially under the bill that was passed. So, but I have all the numbers here. I know a lot of you are numbers people, and I encourage you to take a look at it. Once again, thank you for inviting me, and if you have any ideas on things that I can work on for you, for the community, please know on 9 North, it's on the ground level. I would love to see you. If you'd like to take a tour of the Capitol, I'd be happy to help you with that too. And thank you really, honestly, for serving this community. I know some of you very well, some of you I just met tonight, but I know you're taking times away from your family and from your loved ones and from your other hobbies and things that you enjoy. Everything really, I really think everything happens at the local level is so extremely important. So thank you for your decision to serve.
Thank you, Diane. And a shout out to your staff person, Sue Meinholz, who has been at the Capitol for a long time, and she's great.
Oh, I'm so lucky. So fortunate.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
With that, we will move to reports. First, we will have the administrator's report. Mr. Burns, please.
Yeah, just have a couple of brief updates this evening. First, the city assessor is working on finalizing the assessment notices. This is a revaluation year, so they are taking a look at all properties, and based on market conditions in 2011 and 2012, we'll be sending out notices with updated values as of January 1, 2013. Those notices should be coming out within the next 2 weeks, possibly in the next week or so. And the city has identified September 30th as the tentative date for the border review. The assessor wanted to ensure that everyone knows that if they have any questions, that they can contact him as soon as the notices go out. Contact information will be included with the notices. And then if there are any questions about the assessments after meeting with the assessor, they can contact the city clerk about the border review process. Our consultant, MSA, is continuing to work on the downtown study. They are working on developing a land use and redevelopment plan based on feedback provided from the visioning session that was held at the senior center. They are targeting a steering committee sometime around the middle of September, and we're working on getting dates for that meeting. I will send that information out to the council as soon as the date is chosen. And then they're tentatively planning that around the end of September or beginning of October, they would have that draft land use plan available for another public meeting. And then just a reminder that in that process as well, that would be coming back before the Plan Commission as well as coming to the City Council, which would be public meetings as well. Work is starting to begin on the city budget process. City departments are working on their budget requests. We are looking at some dates within September to hold a budget kickoff meeting, and then would be working to schedule meetings with the Finance Committee sometime around the end of September or beginning of October. And one potential date I need to send out to everyone, but if you could look at your calendars, would be looking at the third Monday in September, which would be the 16th, and I want to see if people may be available for a meeting that evening. And then finally, the city is continuing to work with Dane County on the implementation of the DaneCom radio system. That system should be operational later this year. And in addition, the city of Verona has been working with the city of Fitchburg on partnering with their analog tactical radio system. Epic is also working on installing equipment to be a part of that system. And we're working on a draft memorandum of understanding with Fitchburg that we're hoping to bring to the next city council meeting for your consideration. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for Mr. Burns? I'm not seeing any, but I would strongly recommend to the Common Council that please plan on keeping that September 30th date open for Board of Review. It is necessary that we have a quorum that evening, and the Board of Review is the Common Council, the City Clerk, and the Mayor. So we need to have a quorum, and we're required to be there by state law a minimum of 2 hours. So please keep that September 30th date available if you possibly can. Seeing no questions, thank you, Bill. We will move then to the engineer's report. Mr. Gunlock, please.
Thank you. Several items this evening. I'll try to make this quick. Cathedral Point Phase 3. Asphalt binder course is down, as is the sidewalk. All that remains is street terrace landscaping. So that project should be completed in 2 weeks. Lincoln Street culverts. As you came in this evening, you can see the street has been reopened. Channel grading is complete and the landscaping is complete. That project is virtually done. Meister Addition Phase 7. Sanitary sewer construction has been completed. 80% of the water main construction has been completed. Curb and gutter has been installed in the 2 cul-de-sacs off of Meister Drive. Storm sewer still needs to be installed in Meister Drive, and the replacement culverts installed on the dry tributary to Badger Mill Creek. Work for Meister Drive should be completed by September 13th. 2013 street rehabilitation project. The remainder of the streets in this year's project that were in the Eastview Heights neighborhood were paved last week. All that remains is landscaping. Epic Lane, Northern Lights. The second northbound lane on Northern Lights from West Verona Avenue to Breckenridge Drive has been completed. The southbound lane was repaved last week. Shouldering will be done this week. Epic Lane from Northern Lights to Milky Way has also been repaved. There will be some landscaping along Northern Lights after the shouldering is completed, and that project will be completed. The final project is the US Highway 18-151 off-ramp. Contractor has completed widening of Epic Lane and the West Verona Avenue right turn lane to Epic Lane. Grading for the off-ramp was completed a week ago, and the paving of the off-ramp was completed on Saturday. The off-ramp approach taper and right turn lane at West Verona Avenue still remains to be paved. Some of that will be done tomorrow, and probably it'll all be done by the end of the week. That would leave some shouldering, landscaping, and traffic signal modifications. All work on the off-ramp is scheduled to be completed by September 6th. That completes the report for this evening. Be happy to answer questions if there are any.
Are there any questions this evening for Mr. Gunlock? Seeing none, thank you, Bob.
You're welcome.
We'll move then to committee reports. We'll begin with the Plan Commission. Mr. Yurs, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first item of business under 9A1 is a resolution approving an amendment to the group development conditional use permit for Vincenzo Plaza. A little background is the proposed conditional use permit amendment will allow for the construction of a 5,866 square foot office building located immediately west of Gray's Tide House. The building's architecture will be similar to the recently constructed office building located east of Kimball Lane. And one of the primary concerns in this project was parking to begin with. There's only a net loss of 2 spaces, and there's also agreements with other businesses to share parking. So I think the entire commission was okay with that issue and recommended its approval with 2 following conditions. Indoor entertainment land uses, including restaurants and taverns, are prohibited land uses within the proposed building, and a photometric plan for the parking area shall be submitted and approved by the Director of Planning and Development prior to occupancy being granted. Following that, I would also like to move for the approval.
We have a motion by Mr. Yurs. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Ricky. Additional comments, questions, concerns? Mr. Diaz?
I just wanted to say that I think shared parking agreements are fantastic, and I hope that we get a chance to vote and approve on more of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments, questions? One of the other things why the Plan Commission felt very comfortable with this development is because it's being done by a developer that we've worked with in the past and has had exceptional buildings in that near vicinity. So I just wanted to mention that as well. There was a high comfort level. Further questions, comments? Otherwise, the motion is to approve Resolution R-13-030, approving an amendment to the Group Development Conditional Use Permit for Vincenzo Plaza with the 2 conditions that Mr. Yurs included in his motion. Seeing no questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. And that motion carries. Thank you. Mr. Yurs?
The second item from the Plan Commission is a wellhead protection ordinance for the city of Verona. This proposed wellhead protection ordinance will regulate land uses to minimize the potential contamination to existing future wells. The goal of the ordinance is to prevent the release of contaminants into well recharges areas by regulating uses within certain distances from municipal wells. The ordinance will require separation distances from the use as defined in Wisconsin Administrative Code NR 811. Adoption of a wellhead protection ordinance is a requirement for the city to bring the new well number 5 online. The Plan Commission met on this as well and voted unanimously to recommend approval, and therefore I move approval of the ordinance.
We have a motion by Mr. Yurs. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Seconded by Ms. Doyle. Additional comments, questions, concerns? No questions, comments? I will call the question. All those in favor of ordinance number 13-830 signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. And that motion carries. Mr. Yurs?
And actually, for this next item, if Mr. Sayer wouldn't mind giving the background, since it's quite a lengthy background, I would appreciate that.
Mr. Sayer, if you would, please.
Thank you. So as discussed previously, this project has been kind of going on for many years now, and I guess I'll give a brief background on the history behind it to begin with. Initially, the project was proposed in 2005, and discussions began with the city and the developer. And the main hindrance to the project at that time was the water and sewer connections. The cost of constructing the sewer connection was $1.6 million, and the water connection is 1.3, or vice versa. So approximately, to run infrastructure to that in 2007 was approximately $3 million. Based upon that, the developer took a look at that. The price was very high. He spoke with the town. He went to the town next to talk about the project there. And the record's really not clear what happened at the town. It was the time that the city was talking about consolidation, but it looks like the town really didn't take action on it. And that it got dropped, and the developer came back to the city in 2009, and discussions have been ongoing ever since. The project has been discussed many times over the years. Most recently, besides the last Plan Commission meeting, was in February of 2013. Minor modifications have been made since that February meeting, which were provided. That includes providing a corridor for the Ice Age Trail. Consistency with the actual plan, it's the city's comprehensive plan. The city's comprehensive plan did identify this as a possible growth area that the city may grow into the future, and the southeast neighborhood plan also provided that detail as well, indicating that there was some indication the city may grow that way in the future as well. There are a variety of issues that staff has looked at this that we realize would have to be addressed. The developer is aware of those issues, and they're outlined in the actual staff report. So I won't go through them one by one, but those are issues that we know if the project does move forward, we have to work out those details, and staff has recognized that, and so does the developer. The reason we haven't done that yet is obviously this has larger policy implications behind it. There's issues, but there's also broader implications of how the city will handle this development, obviously developments that come after this as well. A couple items to note: if we do proceed with this actual project, a variety of amendments would be necessary to many city ordinances. Concurrently with that, we'd probably want to amend the city's comprehensive plan to explicitly call out this area of the city, allowing this type of development to occur. Now, we did speak with CARPC, the Regional Planning Commission, and discussed would this impact our sewer allocation. For those of you not familiar with this, CARPC does limit the number of acres that we can bring into the city's sewer service area. And in speaking with staff at CARPC, they indicated that no, this type of development or any type of development on sewer or on septic and well would not count against that allocation that we have. So that's one thing important to note. So at the Plan Commission, what staff encouraged the Plan Commission to do, and I'll encourage the council to do tonight as well, is staff didn't provide a recommendation. We encouraged the Plan Commission to answer a series of questions, because as I said previously, there are some larger policy implications if this moves forward with other developments that may occur in the future. And I'll just read through the questions that were asked to the Plan Commission. And I'm not sure, there was a general mixed reaction, I would say, at the Plan Commission based upon the responses they gave us. That's probably the best way of summing up the Plan Commission's feeling. It was some were for, some were against. It was probably most likely mixed. But the questions that I would encourage the council to answer tonight are the following. Does the Common Council support private well and septic development for the Brown Farm development? 2, does the Common Council support private well and septic development for other areas that cannot be easily served by municipal water and sewer? 3, does the Common Council support private well and septic development for areas that can be easily served by municipal water and sewer? 4, does the Common Council support lower density residential development in outlying areas which may be more difficult or costly to provide city services? And finally, does the Common Council support lower density residential development in outlying areas if the anticipated tax base is sufficient to cover the cost of providing city services? So the Plan Commission, and I'll speak for staff especially, we encourage you to look at those questions, try to answer those questions with regard to this proposal and obviously other proposals if they were to come forward in the future as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sayre. Mr. Heinrichs is in the audience this evening, and Mr. Heinrichs, would you want to make a presentation, if you would, please?
I would, thank you.
Sure, we'll have the speakers introduce themselves.
Again, my name is Tony Heinrichs, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. I don't think we have to spend a whole lot of time on the concept plan here, because I know it's been in front of you for quite some time. This is a concept plan, and it has been a working plan. It's evolved over the past 8 years. We've gotten here because we have been in front of Dane County Parks. We have been in front of the Ice Age Trail. We have had revisions from discussions with the town a long time, or I guess a long time ago. These people do have questions. They do have concerns. There were people here this evening that were voting or talking in favor of it. I can assure you they are not on my payroll. I've never met most of them before in my life. I do have some people here that are on my payroll because these people have asked questions and they want answers. And so I've hired, in my opinion, experts to give you those answers. These boards here, there are a lot of things brought up tonight, and I can't remember every single one of them. Christy, I think yours was that the density has gotten a lot higher from what I originally proposed. And what has changed there is before it was just the Brown property, which was 178 acres, but since then, the Ryan property of 36 acres and Mary Warren and Mary Ann Olson of 31 acres. So that increased the acreage to a total of 245 acres with approximately 108 home sites. One of the original concept plans actually shows 107 sites on the Brown land. And so now we're proposing 106, 107, 108, and 245. So when we were in front of the town, there have been many, many concept plans, 2-acre lots, 5-acre lots, and so this is the most current one. We're certainly welcome or would entertain any thoughts, any suggestions, recommendations as to tweaking it, as to making it better. I know there's issues here about well and septic. I find it, all these people that have lived out in this area for many, many years, have you guys had issues with your septics out there and wells?
Well, when the water comes pretty high to your well, you do have a lot of concern.
What, Tony?
So
we really need to
okay.
Have you have that
okay.
conversation.
So I just find it that you can step off the Brown land and have no issues out there, but step on the Brown land and have a bunch of issues. Nonetheless, I guess what I'd like to do is start, because it seems like a lot of the major issues here is the well and the septic and the stormwater. I guess I'd like to start by introducing Jim Clark, and if Jim could come and talk about what makes him an expert in this and his experience on it.
Good evening.
Hi, Jim.
My name is Jim Clark, and I was the former Director of Environmental Health for Dane County, a position I held from 1987 to 2008. And one thing I'd like to point out is that the regulation of private sewage systems in Dane County was regulated by the health department because it is really a health issue. And if I had any doubts in my mind that private sewage systems or private water wells were a hazard, especially as constructed by regulations since 1976, I would not be here tonight. He wouldn't have that much money. One thing I did note is the comments about the infrastructure that's being replaced in the city, and the public water systems and the public sewer back 40, 50 years ago was way inferior to the materials and the design that we have today. And the stuff that's going in the ground today will last way, way longer than the stuff that was put in 40 years ago. Private sewage systems have had a similar evolution, yet it's very, very hard to get people to actually recognize it. Around Dane County, there are, I can't even count the number of rural subdivisions that serve thousands and thousands of people with private sewage systems and private water wells, and they enjoy a very comfortable and efficient style of life. I think if you asked any one of them if they have misgivings about ever having lived on it, they would say no. And it's partly because they are properly designed and properly sited for the way people use water today. So from a lot of different perspectives, not the least of which is just the upfront cost of running public services versus having individuals have control of their own water and sanitary disposal system. It opens a lot of different opportunities, not only for the treatment plant, which in this situation is the Madison Metro, receiving millions and millions of gallons of water a day from many, many sources, but have to function under federal and state regulations on what is in that wastewater. I would think if there's an opportunity to reduce the amount of water that has to flow that channel, it would be well worth thinking about. And personally, I think it is a very opportune time for a city like Verona to take a look at the real reasons. Are there any scientific reasons or functional reasons or even aesthetic reasons that private sewage systems would not be acceptable within the city limits? I personally would say no, there is no reason not to think that they would be part of a functioning and viable city without creating the problems that clearly stick in people's minds. I liken it to when people think of getting a well drilled, they call those people well diggers. Well, there hasn't been a well dug probably in 110 years, but people still think of them in the terms of back at Grandma and Grandpa's farm or whatever. So again, just to encourage the city to take a look at this from not just a standard of perhaps a precedent setting. In some ways it might be in Wisconsin, but not in surrounding states. And it's also something that perhaps the city may bump up against in the future, and this could be something that would help you in those decisions, because there are lots of subdivisions around Verona that are served by private sewage systems, and if the city limits do reach out to those areas, would it be worthwhile forcing them to abandon perfectly functioning systems just to put them on an urban service district? Again, I think you know what my answer is, but these are questions that only you can answer.
Thank you for your comments.
Can we ask him a question?
You sure can. Go ahead, Mr. Steiner.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Church, several of these town citizens have said that their well depth is 120, 125, 130 feet deep right now. To your best of your knowledge, when you add in 107, 106, 108 new wells, and their expected depth will be about 200 feet, is this a concern for the citizens who presently live there and have lived there a long time, and their wells are only at 120 or to 130?
No, actually, I think quite the contrary. Wells are being drilled into aquifers that in this area are confined between different layers of bedrock. The water is typically found in a sandstone aquifer. The wells that are really affected by multiple uses or high capacity wells are shallow wells like you find in the Central Sands region, because that's all perched water. You know, they have many areas where they don't drill wells, they just put in a point. But the point well is susceptible to contamination, it's susceptible to water usage habits of other businesses or multiple property owners like in subdivisions. Whereas in Dane County, they're actually very protected from that. And I would not have any concern whatsoever about the aquifers being impacted by multiple hundreds of households in any particular area. In fact, we have many areas already that exist that speak against that. If you go around Sun Prairie or Middleton or whatever, you have, again, umpteen subdivisions with hundreds and hundreds of lots. Everyone has its own water well, and to my knowledge, there's not been any water quality or water supply issues.
Mr. Steiner?
A follow-up question, please. I did a little search on this, and I found a few developments in the Middleton area. They don't have individual wells. They have what they call a group well, so that 4 or 5 homes will share one well. Is this recommended by you?
In some perspectives, it would be recommended, but in some, it would not. When you get into a community well like that, you have issues of ownership. The lot, there's only one lot that well is located on. Everybody else has to have laterals off that. You have costs associated with it. You have the annual electricity costs if the well goes, or the pump should go bad, although I personally have a private water well and I've had 23 years without any problem whatsoever. But eventually, all mechanical things are going to fail. So you do have to think of that. And on the community well, if somebody says, well, I'm just not going to pay, it just starts creating all kinds of legal issues and headaches that people don't really need to face. If there was a compelling reason to say, yes, that's the best way to go in this situation, I'd say yes. But given the complications that can create, I would say there's no compelling reason not to just say each person has their own well, they take care of their own.
Thank you. And my last question. A few of these citizens have expressed concern about the amount of water that is flowing down the hill, and I know that there's methods being set up to control this, but will this affect anyone who has a shallow well? For example, if there's a lot of water coming down that hill and it's sitting in the low-lying areas and there's a few residents who are living in that area, should they really be concerned that their well, which has been there for a number of years, might be affected now by all this water?
Again, my answer to that would be no, because about the only type of well that would be potentially affected by that would be a shallow well, such as a point well, because that's tapping into a very shallow aquifer. It's a situation where you're actually drawing water out of the well like sucking Coca-Cola out of a glass with a straw. You're pulling the water up, whereas there are very few places in Dane County that the soil will even allow a point well, because you're literally driving it into the ground. And if Verona is still in the glaciated area, you're going to hit rocks, you're going to hit all kinds of stuff that would frustrate you. And with the wells that would be constructed easily in the last 40 years, there would have been DNR requirements for how deep that well had to be cased and cemented into bedrock to prevent anything from coming above that could contaminate that well. So again, just the regulations and the enforcement in the last 40 years has improved greatly, whereas the recognition of that has not kept pace with those improvements.
Thank you, Mr. Church.
Mr. Manley, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for coming and for lending your expertise. I tried to do a little bit of research on the number of private septic systems in Wisconsin, and I couldn't find that data, but what I did find from the Department of Natural Resources website was that over 2/3 of the population in Wisconsin are served by private wells, over 750,000 private wells in our state. And so I guess can't say this definitively, but I suspect that if somebody is being served by a private well, they're likely, in most circumstances, being served by a private septic system. And that's a lot. That's a big number. And I guess my question to you is, given your experience with Dane County from, I think you said 1987 to 2008, I'm guessing based on population extrapolations that there must be thousands of private septic systems in Dane County. Did you see widespread failures during your time with Dane County that would give us reason to think that this is not a safe technology for dealing with waste in our city?
Primarily the problems that we saw related to much older installations, because ever since 1972, Wisconsin has had regulations that require certified soil testers to go out and actually look at the soil to make sure that it's suitable for private wastewater disposal. Without going into long, in-depth descriptions, but there's two types of failure. There's treatment failure and there's hydraulic failure. Treatment failure is when the soil is just not suitable and the effluent is discharging directly into bedrock or groundwater. And those types of failures are most prominent with systems that were installed in the 1940s through 70s. But since that point in time, soil testers had to do that site evaluation, and Dane County was the first, and for a long time the only county, that required the health department to go out and verify that what the findings the soil testers were reporting was accurate. So they couldn't just make up a fairy tale and send it to us and we'd issue a sanitary permit. So I'm 100% certain that the soils were suitable for systems that have been installed since basically 1976, because the regulations or the permits didn't come in until then. And then the regulations also now require that you not only have a primary system area, because that's the second failure, which is hydraulic. All systems eventually are going to just wear out, but by having that second drain field area on the lot, pre-approved, ready there, waiting for the replacement system, the first system fails, you put in the second septic system, and then from that point on, all you have to do is alternate back and forth every year, and you will never have another hydraulic failure. So these are the types of improvements that get no credit. I mean, there's no chance that it's going to hydraulically fail to the point where it's going to create a surface nuisance. And to the best knowledge in experimentation in the last 50 years, it's treating the effluent to a point where it's drinking water quality within 3 feet of where the bottom of the system and the sewage interface meet. And again, my experience, and because we tested a lot of wells, there was a program for people that were expecting babies. We would go out and test the well water to make sure that it met the state drinking water standards for nitrates and many other things. And even in these large, fairly dense subdivisions, there was no noticeable increase in any of the contaminant levels. And in some cases, actually a reduction, because farming is a very intensive industry. It seems a bucolic green type thing, but when you look at the types of chemicals and the fertilizers and things that are applied, and many of the the fertilizers have a nitrate as a carrier because it dissolves easy and it's cheap. But all of that is leaching into the ground as well. So something else that is often overlooked, and the bias is toward the septic systems, not some of these other sources of those types of contaminants.
Mr. Manley?
Thank you for that, and if I could just ask a follow-up question. Do you know, or can you approximate what the pumping capacity of these private